With gas prices dropping in Europe, there's growing chatter about nitrogen plants possibly restarting, though there are still big challenges ahead. And in the U.S., changes to fertilizer tariffs and the threat of new ones on Canadian potash could have real implications for farmers. I'm Johanna Bota, and here to help make sense of it all is Josh Linville, VP of Fertilizer at StoneX. Morning, Josh.
Good morning.
So last week, we touched on falling Dutch TTF prices and the idea that Europe might restart some of its offline nitrogen plants. With values dropping even farther, do you now see a realistic path for those facilities to come back online?
A realistic path is probably being a little too optimistic. A little bit higher hope path, absolutely, but it's still such an uphill road. I honestly, a conversation we continue to have in here is we talk about Europe's nitrogen production from a standpoint of they're at 75% of normal. That's kind of what our expectation, our belief is. We've got to start wondering if this current 75% is the new 100%. These plants that have been offline, they have been offline for a long time, several years. That's not good on equipment. Anybody that's worked in this type of stuff understands how that works. You look at the European political climate, it's not exactly conducive to this style of production. It's moving more to clean, more to newer technologies. So you're going to fight the governments. The Dutch TTF, we're not guaranteed that it's going to stay as low as it is. We see this thing all over the place. So there's no long-term expectation or hope that the price will stay where it is. This thing could easily jump right back up to where it was. So you start looking at that and everything else around the world. Yes, our hope is rising. And of course, with a lot of nitrogen prices around the world being linked or highly correlated to that Dutch TTF, it does help lower price ideas around the world. And truthfully, I do hope that one day we'll wake up and all these plants have made the announcement, yes, we are going to try and restart. That would be a massively bearish event for global nitrogen products across the board. But I'm not losing a lot of sleep over the expectation that's going to happen. Unfortunately, I'm leaning more of the camp that 75% is the new 100.
Understood. Let's move to the U.S. now, where the removal of fertilizer tariffs is finally having its desired effect. Tell us more about the Saudi phosphate shipment that's expected to arrive in December and what impact this could have on the U.S. fertilizer market.
Yeah, so phosphate has continued to be one of the biggest focal points that we've had in the fertilizer market because the price has been so high, because inventories and supplies have been so tight. So when the Trump administration announced, hey, we're going to remove the tariffs, remove fertilizer from the tariff rates, immediately we started thinking about, okay, let's walk through the phosphate market. What does this mean? And unfortunately, what does this not mean? Again, the phosphate world controlled by 5 major countries around the world: Morocco, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, and the US. So removing these tariffs is a great thing. And a lot of folks immediately think, oh, this means prices are going to fall off. Inventories are going to be flush. We're going to be okay. In actuality, it only opened up one avenue. Saudi Arabia, like you mentioned. Russia and Morocco continue to have countervailing duty rates on them. So that's impeding them from coming to the U.S. market. And China is back to not exporting anything. And we still think they've still got those tariffs from the first Trump administration in place. So it's a great situation. It is a great step forward. And we're already seeing signs that there are tons coming. I believe there's a 180,000 ton deal inked for 180,000 tons of DAP, where those tons are going to arrive to the U.S. from Saudi Arabia in the month of December. So those little bits and bobs are going to help out tremendously. But overall, we still got a lot of problems on the phosphate market.
Okay, and sticking with U.S. fertilizer policy for a moment, there's another major concern popping up. President Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on Canadian fertilizer, a move that could hugely disrupt the U.S. potash market. How big of a deal would that be, and what would it mean for American farmers?
It could be a huge thing. Potash is a market that for most of 2025 we have looked at, and we just literally haven't had anything to talk about. It's one of my team and I, we always joke when we do our weekly memo that we come to potash and we're like, okay, guys, put on your thinking caps because we got nothing to talk about. That's how boring the potash market has been. When you look at the U.S. imports, and the U.S. does rely heavily on imported potash to meet our demand, about 90%, a little bit less than 90% of that overall import comes from Canada. And to make matters worse, the second largest supplier at about 8 or 9% of our overall imports, it comes from Russia. So we're talking about almost 97, 98% of our needs are coming from Canada and Russia, and it puts us in a very delicate position.
Yeah, not boring anymore. Josh, thank you again for your insight. We've got 2 more interviews before we break for the holidays, so please be sure to tune in. And for more financial content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.